Hey everyone! Behind me is the electric bike I've been using for over 6 months now. This is the Rize Blade. It was sent over to me from Rize to check out, and I've ridden this bike through almost every single season. Throughout the fall, the cold winter months here in Toronto, the spring, and now the summer. And honestly, this bike is one of my favorite pieces of tech ever, and I use it almost every single day. Okay, so first up, let's talk about the design. As you can see, I chose the yellow one, and the design itself actually looks pretty good in my opinion. And for an e-bike in this style, it's very slim, agile, lightweight, and just easy to bring around and ride. And it's also built exceptionally well. I've been using this bike recklessly, really beating it up, using it without any care in the world, and it still looks and works great. The bike can definitely take some abuse. Now I have had to replace the kickstand because the one that it came with I eventually broke in half by accident. And well, I just broke another one. Nice. I've had to tighten some bolts here and there, and eventually, probably in a couple months, it will need some new brake pads to replace the current ones, which are wearing down a little bit. But besides all that, everything else here with this bike after many months still works and looks great. The tires here are 4 inches thick, they're from Kenda, and they have puncture resistance. And there's also some pretty solid treads on these tires as well to grip terrain, whether it's the road, maybe a bit more muddy conditions, the grass, sand even. The bike can handle almost all terrain very well, even the snow. The seat here is a banana style seat, and it's actually a very comfortable seat for this bike, which you're going to want to have if you're sitting here for a very long time on a longer trip, or if you're pedaling. And you can probably fit 2 people on this seat, but keep in mind the weight limit is 300 pounds with this bike. The bike also comes with solid front and rear lights, but I did actually replace the front light with a much bigger one that's a bit brighter and also I think just looks better on a bike like this, because the one that comes in the box is actually pretty small and it's just okay. The bike also does come with a rear rack included in the box, which is a great accessory to have if you feel like using it for additional storage, adding a milk crate. It's just nice to have it included versus having to pay for it as an additional accessory. But personally, I took it off my bike after about a day because I want to have the bike as lightweight and slim as possible, and also I probably wouldn't end up using it. What's also included with this bike is front tire suspension, and this is a great feature to have on any bike, especially with e-bikes. And if you don't want to use it, you can simply just tighten up the suspension and turn it off. But personally, I've tried plenty of bikes without suspension, and going to this bike, having it here, I can't go back. It's a great feature to have. And overall, what front suspension does is makes your ride on this bike a hell of a lot smoother. It lets you hop off curbs and get on curbs a lot easier, and it just makes for a better ride overall. Going over rougher terrain, maybe a couple bumps in the road, a little small pothole here and there, the bike can handle it, and you barely feel anything with that front suspension. Now going up top to the large, nice padded handlebars, we have the LCD display which is adjustable, it's easily viewable outdoors, and shows information like the speed, total kilometers, different modes you're on, and other ride info. Next to it we have the Shimano 7-speed shifter, and opposite that, the thumb throttle. Okay, so that's like a basic overall view of the bike itself, but now let's talk about the fun part, the ride. So there are a few different ways you can actually ride this bike. The first way is just as a regular bike. If you don't turn the bike on, you can just pedal it as you normally would, and it works as a bike. And it's a decent to pretty good ride. Now, of course, because you have the battery and all these other components, the bike is a hell of a lot heavier than just like a regular road bike or a city bike. So you're gonna have to put in a bit of extra work, but besides that, it's doable, it's a good ride, I don't mind pedaling if I have to. Then when you do turn on the bike, you have pedal assist. So when you start pedaling, the bike helps to boost you a little bit forward, helps you go a little bit faster, you don't have to put in as much work, and going up hills, you're not going to be stressing and straining, the bike helps you out. What makes this e-bike special, and this category of e-bikes in general, is the ability to use the full throttle mode with this bike, and it is a wonderful experience. So when you put your thumb down on the trigger, the bike immediately jumps forward, and if you hold it down, you just start flying. It is incredibly responsive and instant, and the bike immediately gives the gas or electricity to help you go forward. And out of all the e-bikes I've tried so far, this one feels the most responsive and most powerful. This is only the 500 watt version. There's also a 1000 watt version, which no doubt feels even more incredible. Out of the box, the bike goes up to 32 kilometers an hour, which is 20 miles per hour. But if you unlock the bike like I did, which is incredibly easy, I've gotten the bike up to 45 kilometers an hour, which is 28 miles per hour. And that's pretty quick on this bike. Like if you have to make a quick decision, a quick turn, hop out of the way, the bike throws all that power at you right there. You can make some really fast moves if you have to. And I guess it also helps that the brakes feel very responsive on this bike as well. So overall here, this is a very safe, consistent, smooth ride experience where you feel like you have full control and you're kind of like one with the bike, if that makes any sense. So these have all been kind of technical points about this bike. And besides getting from point A to point B pretty practically with this bike, it's also just a lot of fun. So whether I'm just going for a simple ride in my neighborhood throughout the city, pulling up to a coffee shop or a meeting, cruising down Lakeshore, meeting up with friends, grabbing groceries, all of those missions I feel safe, it's incredibly fun and enjoyable and a smooth, beautiful experience. It is just so much fun to fly down the streets on this bike, do your thing, pull up, hop back on, fly home. It's just amazing. Another interesting point that I've discovered after riding this bike for so many months is that it's basically a cheat code to the city. And what does that mean? Well, with this bike, you avoid all the pitfalls and negatives of getting around a busy city. Whether it's a car, public transit, city bike, or an Uber, you avoid almost all of those problems. Like for example, during rush hour, if there's a city gridlock, a big game happening in the city, you can just weave through traffic, hop in a bike lane, take some little side streets, you're gonna get wherever you need to go on time, no matter what. And when you actually pull up to the place you're trying to go, you can park this bike basically anywhere. No looking for parking, no paying for parking, lock the bike wherever you want. Of course, invest in some good locks, but besides that, you can park it anywhere. And unlike a regular bike where you have to pedal, you're gonna pull up to your location, nice and chill, it's a simple cruise, you're not gonna be tired, sweaty, or exhausted. This thing is amazing. Whether it's a big city, a small town, doesn't matter. It's fun, it's enjoyable, it's a great practical vehicle. Now of course, a practical vehicle needs to last for all of your trips and adventures, and this bike certainly does. It has up to 70 kilometers of range, which is about 43 miles of range. And the battery itself is integrated into the frame, it's locked up, you don't have to worry about people stealing it, and it's not like a big bump on the top or underneath the bike, it's well integrated, looks nice. And you can also buy a second battery to double that range too. But the base 70 kilometer range is actually pretty good. I can go across the city, do a whole bunch of things, meet up with some friends, grab groceries, run a few errands, come home, and I still have about half the battery left on those kind of days. And on those weeks where I use the bike on and off here and there for a few quick trips, no long adventures, I can get away with charging the bike just once a week, overnight, no problem. And charging the bike from 0 to 100 takes about 5 hours total, which I really don't mind, it's fine, and the brick itself I also don't mind, it's fairly large and that's expected. What I do mind here though is the sound this brick makes. The charging brick has a fan built in to keep it cool while you're charging, and it is a fairly loud fan if you live in a small space like I do. Okay, so overall, I love this bike. Now, this of course is definitely a big purchase. It has a hefty price tag, but that's expected with electric bikes like this. So if you are considering this bike, think about if you're actually going to use it, when you're going to use it, and if your city has a good biking infrastructure as well, because that definitely helps. Toronto isn't perfect for biking, but it definitely has gotten much better over the last few years. Just a few things to think about. But what I can tell you for sure about this bike is that it's incredibly fun to use and ride around, it's gonna last, it's made of high quality parts, it's incredibly polished and well made, and it's pricey, but I think it's worth it depending on how you plan to use it. And that's it. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe, and thank you for watching.